So here's a little experiment. I'm going to give you a list of 10 problems that we run into as pianists, and I want you to keep track of how many apply to you. So start with 10 fingers up, and if any of these apply to you, put a finger down. I'm going to go through each one. So number 1, you can't start playing in the middle of the piece that you're currently playing. Number 2, you don't know how to continue playing after hesitation or taking a wrong turn. Number 3, you always forget how to play a piece once you stop practicing it. So if you learn a piece, you memorize it, a few months later, without practicing it or without revisiting it, you might completely 100% forget. Number 4, you can't branch out into other genres or styles without sheet music. Number 5, you can't jam with other musicians. Number 6, you can't draw connections and commonalities between different pieces that you play. Number 7, you can't play a piece from memory with your hands separate. Number 8, you don't know how to determine the key of a piece. Number 9, you struggle or you can't play by ear at all. And number 10, you can't improvise. So I could go on and on and on about all of these problems that we face, but if you answered yes to a majority of this list of 10, you're facing a problem that I also faced, which is you are completely reliant on sheet music and muscle memory. I have faced the same problem. It's why I'm making this video, and so I want to go over exactly how we fix this. Before we dive into too deep into these concepts, I do want to tell a story to tell you where I'm coming from. So I spent years taking lessons as a kid, but I eventually quit them because I started to dislike my teacher. And that's because I started asking questions that I had never really asked before. How do I play other genres? How do I improvise? How do I stop forgetting everything that I've learned over these years and years of learning piano? So I primarily learned how to play piano using classical music and only classical music. So we started with method books and then moved into easy classical, then intermediate, and started playing from all different composers. So with my teacher, whenever we started a new piece, all we did was read sheet music and then memorize it and then move on to something new. And then I would completely forget everything that I had spent months and months learning. And this was extremely frustrating. And so I decided to start researching piano on my own. And so this is where my thinking started to change. So imagine that my brain is a garage. Instead of throwing more and more and more stuff into my garage and making a big messy pile of junk, I started developing a system to organize everything so that I could use everything that I wanted to store in the garage. When I wanted to pull out a song, I could reach into a shelf and pull out that song to play on the piano. I even started collecting tools to start creating my own songs and learning by ear. Rather than cramming more and more and more music into my brain, more classical, new piece, I started looking into how that music was actually created. So the reason you're experiencing some of these problems, that first list of 10 that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is because you lack an awareness or an understanding of the foundational structures that build music. All right, so let's go ahead and turn to an analogy. This is what I have pulled up right beside me. I have to call this the painter analogy. So think of yourself now. We're going to step outside of the practice room, and we're going to imagine that we are artists. So here's an analogy that I want to use to start explaining some of these concepts that I learned in order to make better sense of music and to understand it more deeply. However, before I actually get into these concepts, I do want to mention I have a completely 100% free 50-page PDF. It's called The Introduction to Piano Fundamentals, and it's right below this video. So if you want to pull it up and follow, this isn't the same document that I have here pulled up on the video, but if you want to check that out, just browse through it after the video or as I'm speaking now, you're more than welcome to. I spent a ton of time putting that together, and so those will start to introduce you to the same concepts I'm about to mention, but in a lot greater detail. But anyway, let's go back to the analogy. So imagine that you're a painter. First, before we form our painting, we have to set up our color palette. We want select colors that are going to blend well and complement each other. To create a happy, joyful painting, we might paint a sunny day with a garden, rolling hills and a lovely blue sky. So we pick these specific colors for that palette. And if we want to create a mysterious nighttime scene, we gather darker hues for the dark sky, the dark greens for the forest, browns, black, and maybe a tiny bit of a bright color to keep things interesting. So this is the musical scale. The musical scale is the same as the color palette that we put together before we start painting. Before we understand a new piece, we must first assemble the specific notes that will compose the piece of music, and the scale will provide these notes. So we've got the 88 keys in front of us, and as you probably know, it's the same 12 tones repeating themselves over and over again. Let's go ahead and look at, that's the whole color palette that we have. If we want to reduce that and set up our palette for a particular painting, we are going to select particular colors that go well together. An example, we could do C major. This will produce kind of like these bright, positive, happy qualities. And then if we want to have a darker, more mysterious painting, we will use a different color palette. This is C harmonic minor. Oops, I ended on a C major instead of a C minor. There I accidentally used a wrong color. But you get the idea. So now let's move on to some of those structures that I was just forming there. So once we dip our brushes into the paint and start adding lines, shapes, and patterns to the canvas, we start forming the setting for the painting, or the environment for the painting. We can start painting the sky and the mountains in the background, and then add hills and trees and buildings and fences and roads in the foreground. These aren't the subject of the painting, but rather the setting where the painting will take place, or like the place where the subject of the painting will exist. So these are like the chords of music. We form chords by grouping notes together from the musical scale. So in that instance, I formed C minor. That comes from the C minor scale, and it fits in the C minor scale. The chords give each of these individual notes meaning, and we can begin adding new chords to create a story, a message, or a feeling, which builds the musical environment and the atmosphere of the piece. So again, here I use a C minor. I can also use that same scale to form F minor, and I could also do G7. Okay, so now let's move on to inversions. I think I did use an inversion there. Inversions are like rearranging the pieces of the landscape that we have painted. And I know that's not exactly a perfect analogy, like you can't copy and paste on if you're painting on a canvas. You'd have to paint over it. But when we rearrange these like elements of the landscape, we're not actually changing the scene, we're just changing the perspective. It's like painting the scene from a different point of view. Imagine that we've painted a house in a beautiful mountain range from the perspective of someone standing in front of the house. So the house would be in the foreground, and the hills and the mountains would be in the background. Now imagine this same exact scene from a different perspective. If you climb a nearby hill, or you take the perspective of a bird flying high in the air, the setting would be the same, but the elements of the painting would be rearranged and they'd be in different positions. So inversions are like rearranging all of these different parts of the painting. They allow us to play chords in different positions on the keyboard without altering the structure of the music. Inversions present the same message or like feeling or emotion in a new and fresh way. So let's go to C major. This right here, I'm in the right hand, I'm using an inversion of C major. I'll make this a bit more simple. So this is C major in root position. I can also play the same chord in a different position on the keyboard. This is first inversion. This is second inversion. And if I keep going up, I will return to root position. So there's root, first, and second, and then that repeats. And what this allows us to do is to play It allows us to play in a way that it like smooths out the way we play. So if I want to, I'm playing C major here. If I want to move to F major, instead of doing this, doing that big jump, I can do something a little bit more like this. I'm going to go back to C. This is F major, but it's an inversion of F major. So it's the same chord, it's the same harmony, but we're looking at it from a different perspective. We're playing it in a different position, which changes the way that the chord comes across. But also it can help us use like smoother voice leading, and just navigate the keyboard in a more effective and smooth way. So I want to bring up a piece that I learned when I was younger, which is Bach's C major prelude. This is one of the first like intermediate classical pieces that me and my teacher used to that she showed me. So I used to string all these notes together. So we would look at the sheet music and then just memorize all the notes. And so when I tried to look up different solutions to this on YouTube, and I tried to find books that might explain the answer, like even those videos about memorization didn't help too much, because a lot of those tips and tricks were to go measure by measure, and then play with left hand separate, then with right hand separate, and try going measure by measure backwards so that you have a better idea of how these chords transition, rather than actually going into the chords. And that's what I want to do now. Let's give all of these notes some structure. We're in the key of C major. That first chord is a C major chord. Then we move to something completely different. Rather than looking at this as a string of notes, C, D, A, D, and F, we can learn the structure that all of these notes are a part of, which is the D minor 7 chord. How to invert it so we can identify it in different positions, and then apply that to this chord here. All right, this is a G7. That's what we're playing here, and that returns back to C major. So I hope this could help. Again, if you want 50 pages that dive a lot deeper into everything that covered today, scales, chords, and inversions, click the link below this video. It'll take you to the website, enter your email, and I'll send it over. So my videos and my content is generally geared towards musicians that have an idea of how to play piano but are struggling with these specific problems: reliance on sheet music and reliance on muscle memory, which all stems from the same place. So if you want to learn more about it and how to fix this, check out the link below.